I've got my mom's car here. She's driving the old Jetta with the cold weather right now because this one still has heat. The Passat needs a heater core, as I've mentioned before, but you can see this heater hose is leaking. So it's a fairly slow leak still, but it is leaking enough so that the fluid level does go down, and she needs to top it up. A few days ago she was all excited. She said that she went to a gas station, she found green coolant by herself and she topped it up, and I said, well, that's good, because I kept forgetting to drop by and give her some. But then when I picked up the car today and drove it to the shop, I used the windshield washer to de-ice the windshield, and you can see, look at the green coolant. So she also filled the coolant reservoir, sorry, the windshield washer reservoir with green coolant. And it looks like the coolant flange here is leaking as well. That's just the hose. So I'm just going to reposition the clamp. I will be putting in a new temperature sensor and thermostat because the temperature is slow to build. So due to the thermostat, obviously. It could be the temp sensor reading low, but because the heat itself is slow to build inside the vehicle, I attribute it to a thermostat. So I'm going to change that as well. Replacing this hose is fairly straightforward, except for getting at the hose clamps down here. So we'll see how it goes. You want to loosen the cap so that the fluid is able to drain better. I like to do the initial drain from this coolant hose here. These cable clamps make the job a little easier, or can make life easier. And this one I can get at though with the regular pliers. Before I break this plastic tube, I'm going to remove it. With one hand I'm going to hold the clamp, and with the other I'm going to try to pry the hose off. one more clamp to go. Same idea, hold the clamp and then force the hose off. Doesn't matter if I tear the hose, I'm putting a new one on. Bit of a messy job here. It's leaking out of here. I'm gonna lift it and change the thermostat. Splash guard. Thermostat is right here, so I'm just going to move the power steering pump. This bolt can stay in here. There's a 16 up here that has to come out. $10mm. It's got a bit of a transmission fluid leak as well, and depending on how you corner, there's a bit of a slip, so obviously it's a bit low on fluid. I'm going to top that up as well. And by the end of December she'll have that Passat and we can get rid of this one. Okay, so this bolt is loose. That line is loose now. I'll crack that banjo bolt again. I can move this line a little bit. I have to force it a little bit. at 13 right here. Ideally, you want to support this a little bit to keep tension off of this hose, power steering return hose. But for me, this will be good enough. Thermostat is here. That's the lower radiator hose. This might get a little messy. So I'm lucky that the thermostat flange didn't pop off, otherwise I'd be swimming in coolant or have a little shower. So I lowered the car again, and I'm going to remove the flange now closer to the drip tray. And I'm going to free the thermostat with my little pick. I'm probably going to get wet this time. That wasn't too bad. And the thermostat is stuck open. It's cold. You can see how stuck open it is. Okay, the assembly is in reverse of removal. I don't think you're going to have to see that. Thermostat goes back in the same way. Radiator hose, coolant temperature sensor. Okay, once the new hose and thermostat are in place, and the temperature sensor, it's time to fill it. Fill the cooling system. Usually on these 2-liter ABA motors, I'm used to using the vacuum fill method now. But since most of you guys probably don't have that, the only reason I use the vacuum fill is because they sometimes do like to trap air, even though there is a bleed hose right on the cylinder head. So the best way to fill it is through the top radiator hose. It'll just fill the cylinder head here, it'll fill the block here, and as coolant goes in, air will travel up and come out the bottle, provided this hose is blockage free. This is just universal coolant, pre-mixed, 50-50. So you just keep adding it until you see the fluid level in the bottle rise. It should not go through the thermostat and fill up the radiator and come out here. It might a little bit, but it shouldn't. To get my clamp ready. Okay. See, it's going in slower now. And fluid is starting to rise. You can see the regular green that was still left in the block. Nothing out of the radiator yet. Okay, almost to the point where the bottle is at the max. Okay, it's just at the max now. I'm going to go a little bit more because once I attach it to the radiator, it's going to fill the radiator. Got to be a little bit quick. My headlamp is dead again. Wonder if Humble Mechanic is still using his. Okay, at this point you can start squeezing the hoses a little bit. That'll cause a siphoning effect, and fluid will drop as it fills the radiator. And then once fluid level no longer drops, you start it up. You can leave the cap off for a little while. Let the water pump circulate the coolant. Fluid level will drop a little bit. Keep topping up until it no longer drops. Put the cap on. Make sure the bottom radiator hose gets warm. Thermostat opens and that the fans come on.